If you resent studying and school is like the bane of your existence, you are so privileged. I am not going to sugarcoat this. This might be a little brutal, but you need to hear this. And I am also someone who did not enjoy studying. I don't like reading textbooks. I don't like doing homework. I don't like doing blah, 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 right? I just want to sit all day and sing or dance or play basketball or play tennis, right? All the channels out there like, this is how you make studying fun. Here's how to get motivated to study. All these tips just trying to patch up the symptoms of what you and many other students feel when it comes to school. Most of all, I'm tired of you thinking those videos are what you need. That's why people keep making those videos, including me, because I'm pressured to make things that people want to watch. But those motivation and make studying fun videos is what you want, not what you need. Making studying fun and using these shallow tips to improve your motivation is not going to make you better in school, not to the potential you could be, and not to the happiness that you could have when going about your daily lives. That's also why my study videos stand out. They go deeper. I try to address the root problems and not just patch up the symptoms with shallow tips. These videos, these new tools about how to make studying fun, it's honestly like a band-aid for the larger problem. The larger problem is social media and the values that our current society has, because good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Right now, we're in the good times, weak men part, where kids these days are like, I don't want to study. Ew, ew, ew. Please, you are so lucky to study. And I'm not saying this as like a strict or nerdy like mother-like figure, right? I'm saying this as someone who is in your shoes, like also really likes social media, also enjoys many other things to do with my time. I was a student not too long ago, and how I'm explaining things now is how I felt when I was a student, and that is the reason why I could be such a good student. That's why I could be a straight A student and get into one of the hardest universities, one of the most prestigious universities in the world, while not being a book nerd or other stereotypical people with no lives, right? I can do that while still being smart, having soft skills, having street smarts, just honestly, like, do you think I'm weird? Okay, maybe I'm weird, but do you think I look like a nerd? Okay, like, I don't think I'm the stereotypical nerd, if I do say so myself. I digress. The point is, don't be resistant to what I'm gonna say in this video just because you're like, ew, like, why is she like yelling at us, or why is she being so brutal? Because I'm so tired of, I'm so like sad, and like I'm almost like jaded almost sometimes. And again, I do want to say that this is not your fault, because you were never really taught how you should think about things to make yourself happier and better in school by your own choice. You were never really taught how to have that intrinsic motivation. It's not your fault that all your peers have social media, so you must have social media. You see them scrolling, so you're like, I should scroll too. Because as humans, we don't want to be ostracized, right? That's like our survival mechanism. We don't want to be different from other people, and we want to follow what we see because that's what we think will be safe, right? So I don't want this to sound like I'm blaming you. I just want to tell you the hardcore truth that you need to know. I say all this because I care. Tough love is one of the truest forms of love. I have to give that caveat and disclaimer because everyone's so PC and nice these days. Can't say anything truthful. So, education, studying. My grandfather is 90 years old, and he currently is in the hospital, cancer. I'm very sad about that, of course. I'm gonna stop talking about it so I don't tear up. But anyway, last time I went to China a month ago, I wanted to hear his life story. And he talked about how he came from an extremely poor family in China. They were farmers. He came from a farmer family. And farmers are the lowest of the low statuses, that social class, wherever you go, let alone China. His father passed away in his 20s, and his mother passed away not too long after that. He said that actually this became a blessing. Why? You'll see. Because he got taken in by one of his uncles, and his uncle brought him to this place outside of farming. So if these chain of events did not happen, he would have been a farmer all his life. He was so happy, like, look at my big ears. Big ears are a sign of good fortune. That's why I was lucky enough to not be a farmer. And he kept reiterating how he was in this position where he could see no way out of it, because as a farmer, like, you don't have the opportunity to try and get yourself into a different position unless it was like a family member in his case. So he was extremely lucky. His uncle gave him the opportunity to level up, literally, from that social class. So when he became an adult, he worked as a 工人, which is the second lowest level, the second lowest social class. He still didn't have an education. He always says, "Oh, I'm not educated. I'm not good about this. I'm not good at this." He worked as a 工人, this manual labor work level. Don't know how to say it in English, but he had to, with his wife, be doing jobs like working in the factory and doing the same motion of putting things together by hand over and over again. Like, can you imagine how grueling that is? Like, that manual labor. I don't remember all of the specifics, but my grandma, my grandfather's wife, would wake up early, like every morning, 5 a.m., tend to the kids, and then go out to the street to pick up garbage and to go to the supermarket and try and pick out the rotten parts of vegetables, because those you can sell for a few cents. And at the time, my grandparents' kids, my dad and his siblings, they were living in this single room, round dome hut. 5 people, 2 parents, 3 kids, living in this tiny hut. I don't remember for how many years, but they could have new clothes maybe once a year. But that was actually already better than a lot of families at that time. A lot of families at that time, they only had 1 pair of pants within all the members of that family. If you wanted to go out, you had to wait until everyone else in your family was home first, so then you could take the pants and go outside. If you didn't have the pants, you would have to sit at home pantsless. True story. Anyway, my dad, the eldest child, worked incredibly hard in school, incredibly hard. And my grandparents knew of my dad's dedication to education, seeing this as their opportunity to get out of their hard circumstances, or to at least improve them. So they invested so much time and energy into really boosting my dad's academics. Food was scarce, so they would starve themselves at meals trying to give more food to my dad so he can learn better, and so his brain had the nutritions he needs. They took out this, once they moved into a real apartment, they had this little room, no bigger than a closet, behind the TV, and that little closet space was where my dad did most of his studying. He spent hours and hours, hundreds of days in there, studying away. My dad did well. He got into college, and he went to grad school, married my mom, and he was so liked by the professors that they gave him this offer to travel to the US. Wow, that's incredible. It's every Chinese person's dream to go to the US, where there are more resources, there's more space, there's more money, there's more opportunities. Because in China, there's a reason why people have this scarcity mindset. We say all the time, oh, don't have a scarcity mindset, as if it's just a choice. But it's because resources are scarce. There's a lot of people. Simply, that's why people push each other on the streets. That's why they have to be rough. You have to do what you have to do in order to survive. You never should say, oh, why is that country so mean? Oh, why do they act like that? Well, maybe it's because they have different circumstances. That's how they need to live and survive. So, of course, I'm in the US now, so you know what happened. But my mom and dad went to the US, but it wasn't easy. My grandparents had to rack up all their life savings, about $1,000 between the two of them, between my parents. With that money in their pockets, they headed to the US and started to try and build the American dream. My dad worked as a postdoc, and my mom, it was really hard for her to get a job because she was a foreigner still, right? And her English was not good. So she started working in a factory where when she took the night shifts, she could earn an extra, I think, 50 cents an hour. That's what she did. She worked night shifts at a factory, again, doing like grueling manual work for an extra 50 cents an hour. Later on, she leveled up to work at Taco Bell. And finally, she, with her education and her skills, was able to get an engineering job. So then my dad and my mom saved. They saved brutally. That's why a lot of immigrant Asian parents are so frugal. Families are frugal. I am quite frugal. It's because you have to. You have to. So my parents worked hard, even though they just didn't belong. The culture in the US and China are so different. So it's not only the language barrier, but imagine you being somewhere where even body language and like culture and interests you cannot relate to. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. So I really, really appreciate my parents for doing that, for toughening through that situation for so many years. Pain and difficulty breeds strength. My parents are incredibly strong and resilient, and that's what developed that in me too. That's also why I think a lot of people in China, they're not afraid of pain. They're not afraid of putting in the hard work because they know what that will get them. They've seen what happens to people who don't try. Even to people who do try, they still might have terrible circumstances. So they know they have to try. They have to take any opportunity that comes their way. As soon as they earned the $1,000 to $2,000, they sent it back home to China to return to my grandparents. My sister and I, we grew up in this middle-class family, and I think that knowing this kind of struggle, even though I didn't know the details I do today, this instilled this wide perspective of what we're actually doing here. Even if this is not explicitly thought of every day, like, oh, we're doing this because my parents struggled, but it builds something intrinsic, deeper, like hard work is a value, you know? It's like being kind is a value. You don't have to think about being kind. We didn't have to think about hard work. We didn't have to be like, oh, I think school is important explicitly every day. We just knew, because what else would you do with your effort? I want to clarify that what I mean by education now is not just books and grades like it was back in my dad's day in China. What education is now is growing your skill sets that are going to be of value to yourself. That includes self-study. That includes using the wealth of resources at your fingertips online. There's no excuse to be struggling in this subject or, oh, I don't know computer science, I wish I could learn it. You need to tap out of the free resources that you currently have available to you. How do you know what you can learn if you don't even try first? The point I'm trying to make about education is that typically a lot of students are pushing away their studies in favor of things like social media and video games. But at the end of the day, as you see in the stories and in what I'm trying to explain, is that you should be spending your time wisely. No matter what it's on, you need to be converting that into something that helps you and not squandering this valuable time and the opportunities that you have. If you're a kid and you have these things laid in front of you, right? There's like school, there's like, I don't know, TV, games, right? To us, it was like obvious. Well, school, we need to take care of that first. We want to take care of that first. That's the default. Then everything else is extra. Because, of course, it is. Because we knew what school does. And more importantly, I see now that school was not easy for our family to have access to. We are so lucky that my grandpa was able to get out of farming. I would not exist. I would literally not exist. Even if my dad had a kid, they would all be farmers right now. They would all be out there struggling under the sun, at mercy to the weather, the circumstances of that year, at mercy to food prices and all the other things that we can't imagine. So school education, that's our opportunity to have some control. First of all, you're already at a great starting point. So at least work hard enough so that you keep your great fortune. Right now, there's a lot of inflation and competitiveness. So at least work hard enough such that you stay at that same level. It's going to be harder to stay at that same level as time goes on, but it's the same for everyone else, right? Society is getting harder for everyone. We're not talking about the rich people here, okay? But obviously, I was not rich. We were never rich. Not only that, but when you get to post-college, you will see the differences between people who didn't work hard in school. It's so obvious. You will meet someone and this stuff makes me sound so bad, but you can tell if they are someone who worked hard in school or not. Maybe a factor is their current job, but often it might just be their resilience and I say that word so much, and their discipline and the way they view the world. Things are holistic. I believe that this background and this understanding of how important education is makes me better in all other aspects. Those values that my parents helped instill in me, along with the work ethic. I am an athlete. I'm pretty fit. I will go to the gym and I will hurt my muscles. Not really hurt, but I will strain my muscles and push them because I know pushing makes you better. Never was I like, studying is so fun, learning is so fun. No, people who are good at school do not think studying is fun. Maybe some do. I don't know those people. Those days and nights grinding in a closet-sized room on books with the pressure of China's schooling while his parents are watching TV, while his two younger siblings were playing. My dad grinding away at his books. Do you think that was fun? No, but it got him to earn the living that he could later in the US, and it gave him the ability to start building capital for our family and to be able to send money back home to China. So now my grandparents live in a nicer apartment, so they can now eat things they want to, so they can now eat more than they ever had when they were younger. Because of my dad's hard work over and over again, not really knowing where that would lead him, because of that hard work, our whole family is lifted up. Our whole family is in a more comfortable situation because of that. His siblings, grandparents. Now my family can afford my grandpa's surgeries and his chemo. That's all because of the hard work that my dad put into school, because he saw education as an opportunity. The default is working hard in school. In his mind, there's no other possibility of how you should spend your time when you're in that situation and when you're given the gift of education. I was never like, oh my gosh, I love studying for the SAT because this tool is just so fun and this class is gamified, so I want to try and earn these points and that's how I'm gonna get an A in the class. No. The default is trying your best. Because let me ask you, aren't you curious about what your upper limit is? Aren't you curious about the things you can achieve if you cut out the disadvantages? Like if you cut out social media, right? Like you can already imagine how much better you'll be. Like, aren't you curious? Aren't you curious if you couldn't get that A because of social media, or you can actually get that A because you have the potential? Don't you want to know what your potential is? That's also something that drives me, because only once my grandpa was able to be put in this new position of a gongren, then, oh, he can have my dad. And then my dad working hard because of my grandparents' hard work, then he can see, oh, this is the heights I can reach. And he can come to the US. And now I'm like, what kind of limits can I reach? Or like, how unlimited can I be? We have to want that, because that's fun too. That's what makes life great. And it's very enjoyable too, the process. My grandpa was limited. He worked his hardest as a farmer to a gongren, to the manual labor worker. That's the limit he can reach. He can't even get what you have right now. He worked to get that limit. Then my dad, he was in China living in poor conditions, but you know what? He worked hard and he found his limit. He raised that limit and now gave that as a starting point to me. And so now I'm like, I wish my parents, my grandparents could have enjoyed as many of the privileges that I do now, because my life is insane compared to theirs. Our generation is insanely privileged and spoiled. I say that as someone who also thinks I am spoiled, because my parents, they find such joy out of the little things, like, oh my gosh, this meat pancake, we could only have this once a year as kids, things like that. And my grandma, to this day, when we eat out together, she will not touch her food. Even though we have abundance and food for everyone when we go out to eat now, she will not touch it. She refuses. All of us, every single meal, we're like, Grandma, eat more of this. 奶奶, 你吃点吧. She's like, 我不饿, I'm not hungry. Because she cannot get rid of the habit of sacrificing food for her children, because there was not enough. It was so scarce that she cannot get out of the habit, because in her mind it's always like, but what if something happens? But we don't have enough. She fills herself up with water before our meals, saying, I'm not hungry. And then after everyone's finished, then she goes and is like, okay, and then she takes a few bites because she's actually hungry. So maybe the way to get kids more driven, I don't want to say kids because now I just sound like an old geezer who you're not going to listen to. Maybe the way to get students driven is to show them what a hard life really is. A hard life is studying? No. A hard, that's an easy life. That's a blissful life if the biggest thing you have to do is get straight A's and do extracurriculars. Kids would love to do extracurriculars. In China, when I went back, we were leaving from dinner one night, 9:30 p.m. Students were out on the street in their backpacks because school just let out. They wake up in the morning, study at 6 a.m. That's called preschool tutoring or something. Go to school till 9:30. They have no chance of doing extracurriculars like you do. I'm generalizing, I know. I assume that, if you have time to watch YouTube, maybe you have time for some extracurriculars. They cannot play sports and have these opportunities like we do. We should be grateful for that, and we should try hard. Any opportunity we're given, we should try hard and use it. If we don't use this gift of education we've been given, we are doing it. That is disgraceful to it. That's like saying oh, you gave me this gift? Nah, I don't need it. When thousands of kids over the world wanted that thing that you have right now. The big takeaway is stop living your life on autopilot. Don't study right now just because you're like, oh, Amy told me to study. No. You have to feel and internalize the things I said in this video and see how they apply to your own life. What kind of things can you do to make yourself feel like you are doing something right each day? Because you'll actually be happier too. Are you really happy when you don't do the right thing? I can't tell you the number of DMs, emails, and comments saying, I can't focus. I'm unmotivated. I'm bad at time management. There's this email I got the other day saying, I'm so overwhelmed. I have so many hard classes, extracurriculars, and I have to do family things. How do I get the time to do this? Amy, can you help me with time management? In that same email, the last paragraph goes, also, I'm spending 6 hours a day on Instagram. And I was like, if we just take a step back and do some critical thinking ourselves, we can come up with solutions for ourselves. You must tap out of your own brain before you start asking other people, because otherwise you are using your help tokens on cheap things. The answer is in the email, right? Until you delete social media, don't ask any other questions about how to fix this, how to fix this, how to fix that. That is the number one thing you can do that will make much more of an impact than other things. Because when you look on social media, right, you're seeing these 13-year-old kids doing TikTok dances. They're buying Aritzia clothes with their parents' money. They're wearing things that my parents could have never dreamed of. Not even at their age now. My parents now are still not willing to spend money on nice things for themselves because of the habit of frugality. I'm trying to help them. I try to buy nice things for them because they deserve it. But yeah, social media, you are so almost brainwashed, and your mindset is warped. You don't remember the things that matter. You don't remember how you got here. You don't remember the gifts that you've been given. So this video, I hope this is a sign and you make some changes, because if you continue scrolling right after this, that's going to be canceling out the mindset that you've just built by watching this video. Your brain is something that should be trained too. Like I said in my other videos, there's this concept of yin yang that I kind of coined. It's mindset and action are yin yang. Having the right mindset, thinking the right way will make action easier. Then when you make the right action, your mindset will also improve, and it's a self-propagating circle. But you can also have it go the negative way. If you have a bad mindset, you're going to make a bad action. Bad action makes you feel worse, and whoop, loop. in a bad way and spiral down. We want to spiral up. If you're able to watch YouTube videos, if you're even able to think about how much you hate school and consider not doing it and slacking off and you're binging Netflix, you are privileged. You are in a privileged position. So don't do the things that other people wish they had disjustice. Do by the people who are still poor and suffering around the world. Just do better because they want what you have, like be grateful, be happy. And when studying is something you want to do, it's easier. I'm not saying you like doing it because I did not like studying, but I wanted to do it. There's a difference. Before you consume a piece of content, ask yourself, is this making me better or worse? Same thing like with junk food. If your goal is to have a ripped body, toned for summer, and those six-pack abs, are you going to choose the apple or the bag of chips? Life is made by our choices. The choices of working hard in school, day after day, to lift up yourself and your family. You have an opportunity here. You have an opportunity to design the life you want that is way better than my grandparents and my parents' lives. What I mean by better is the ability to relax more, to travel around the world. Because even though my parents are happy and my grandparents were happy, they did not have the living conditions that we do now. My parents are like, what? These college kids are traveling again? We were never able to do that. They would never have been able to live in New York like I do now. And I want to do right by them. I don't want to be ungrateful for the great life I have now. So I'm going to continue working harder. Whenever I have something good happen in my life, I'm like, I got to work harder. When I was on vacation with my family and we were so happy together, and I was just like, man, to have this great life we have now when I know what life was like before, I need to work harder. I struggle concluding these videos because this was filmed incredibly spontaneously. You know what triggered it? It was because another platform emerged that was supposed to make studying more fun. And I think these are, as I said in the beginning, just patching up the symptoms. It's like social media, making kids more unmotivated. Oh, here's a tool to make learning fun. So kids think that learning is supposed to be fun. So they go to social media, which is fun, and it goes in a cycle like this. Social media, lack of motivation, fun study tool. Oh, fun study tool, nah, social media, back in a circle. Please share and like this video if you found this helpful. This is some pretty unique stuff. I've never seen this on the internet before, but maybe that's why this will not perform as well as I would hope. I really hope this is the kind of video that would go viral, to be honest, but I don't think society's like that right now, unfortunately. But if you watch here, you can help make that happen. So share with your friends, share with your family, share on social media, and then delete it. Bye!